Welcome to the realm of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. Enjoy listening. Bob Townsend was one of the richest businessmen on Earth. Over the years, he had spearheaded numerous projects that left an indelible mark on the global economy. Yet, despite all his accomplishments, Bob felt a growing dissatisfaction. The business world on Earth no longer challenged him. It was time to think bigger, literally. Bob had decided to take his ventures beyond the planet and extend his reach into space. To achieve this, he collaborated with a few reputable space firms to turn his dream into reality. Months passed, and Bob closely monitored the progress of his projects. However, a thought began to gnaw at him. He wanted to experience it all firsthand. To stand among the stars and breathe in the atmosphere of a new frontier. He conveyed his desire to the intermediaries managing his affairs with the space firms. After some deliberation, his request was approved. Bob was overjoyed. For the first time in his life, he would embark on a journey to space. The voyage was smooth, and Bob couldn't help but feel a childlike excitement bubbling inside him. Wearing his signature navy blue suit, crisp white shirt, and light blue tie, he looked as dignified as ever. Yet, beneath his polished exterior, there was an undeniable excitement. He felt like a boy on the cusp of a grand adventure. When the spacecraft finally docked, Bob stepped into the new world, ready to oversee his projects and bask in the achievement of venturing beyond Earth. But his excitement was short-lived. No sooner had he set foot on the station than a group of stern-faced space police officers marched toward him. "What's going on here?" Bob asked, his voice tinged with confusion. Before anyone could answer, he felt cold steel on his wrists. He was handcuffed and escorted to a waiting vehicle. "Why are you doing this to me?" he shouted, his voice echoing in the metallic hallway. His protests were ignored. Despite his struggles, he was unable to resist their firm grip. The officers led him to the headquarters of the Galactic Police, a massive structure encased in a domed shell, surrounded by a bleak metallic landscape. Every step Bob took echoed through the corridors, amplifying his unease. He scanned his surroundings, desperate for a clue as to what was happening. Eventually, he was ushered into a large, sterile room with only a table and 2 chairs. One of the officers roughly pushed him into a seat before leaving the room without explanation. Bob's mind raced with questions. Moments later, another officer entered holding an electronic tablet. This one appeared calmer, more composed. "Mr. Townsend," the officer began, placing the tablet on the table. "You are being accused of violating galactic law. There is compelling evidence that resources used in your space projects were acquired illegally. Additionally, there are allegations linking you to unauthorized colonization attempts in restricted zones." Bob's eyes widened in disbelief. "This is preposterous," he exclaimed. "I have always operated with integrity." The officer ignored his outburst and continued. "We have documents provided by the space firms handling your projects. These documents implicate you directly. Therefore, under the Galactic Detention Act, you are hereby under arrest." This is impossible," Bob stammered. "I trusted those firms. My plans were transparent." The officer raised a hand, silencing him. "You will have the opportunity to defend yourself. A lawyer will be assigned to you, and you may present your case to the court tomorrow. For now, you'll be held in custody." With that, Bob was escorted to a holding cell. The clanging sound of the metal door slamming shut reverberated in his ears. He sat on the cold bench, his mind reeling. For the first time in his life, Bob felt utterly powerless. That night, sleep eluded him. He paced the small confines of his cell, trying to piece together how his life had unraveled so quickly. The thought of his reputation being tarnished and his legacy destroyed haunted him. How could this happen? Would he ever see Earth again? The next morning, a guard informed him that his lawyer would arrive in the evening. Left alone once more, Bob spent the day consumed by his thoughts. He replayed every decision he'd made, every firm he'd partnered with, trying to identify where things had gone wrong. He stared out the small window of his cell, the vastness of space, both mesmerizing and isolating. When evening came, the guard returned to escort him to the consultation room. Bob's heart pounded as he entered. Sitting across the table was a striking alien woman. Her emerald green skin glowed faintly under the fluorescent lights, and her sharp, intelligent eyes seemed to pierce right through him. The woman introduced herself as Gyra. Her calm demeanor and confident presence immediately put Bob at ease. He poured out his story, recounting every detail of the ordeal. Gyra listened intently, her expression unwavering. When Bob finished, she leaned back in her chair, her lips curling into a faint smile. "Mr. Townsend," she began, "you're not guilty. This is a classic tactic used by certain space firms to exploit wealthy individuals like yourself. They fabricate evidence to extort money or resources. It's an all-too-common scheme." Bob was stunned. Relief and anger surged through him simultaneously. "Can you help me clear my name?" he asked, desperation evident in his voice. Gyra's confidence was unshaken. "I'll ensure you're acquitted," she assured him. "You have my word." Overwhelmed with gratitude, Bob declared, "If you can get me out of this, I'll do anything for you." Gyra raised an eyebrow, her expression playful yet serious. "Anything? Would you take me with you to Earth?" Without hesitation, Bob agreed. Their conversation grew more personal as the evening wore on. Bob found himself captivated by Gyra's intellect and resilience. She in turn admired his determination and vulnerability. The connection between them deepened, and by the time their meeting concluded, their mutual attraction was undeniable. In a moment of shared emotion, their lips met in a tender kiss. The following day, the trial commenced. Gyra stood firm, presenting a compelling defense. She meticulously dismantled the fraudulent evidence, exposing the firm's ulterior motives. Her arguments were so persuasive that the court adjourned, needing more time to deliberate. During the week-long wait for the verdict, Bob and Gyra grew inseparable. They shared their dreams, fears, and hopes for the future. In the cold, unfeeling environment of the space station, they found warmth in each other. When the verdict was finally announced, Bob was exonerated. The court ruled that the accusations were baseless, and the space firms were ordered to compensate him for the damage they had caused. The court's decision was met with applause from those present in the courtroom. Bob felt a massive weight lift off his shoulders as he stood there, a free man. Yet his ordeal was far from over. Clearing his name was only the beginning. His reputation had been tarnished, his trust in the firms he once relied on shattered. There was no time to waste. As he left the courtroom hand in hand with Gyra, he knew there was much to rebuild, not just his empire, but also his faith in humanity. Back at his quarters in the space station, Bob convened a meeting with his trusted advisors and legal team. Gyra was by his side, her calm yet commanding presence offering him the strength to move forward. Together, they reviewed every document, every partnership agreement, and every decision that had led to his unjust imprisonment. What they uncovered was shocking. A web of deceit, orchestrated by a coalition of rogue firms, all working to siphon his wealth and eliminate him from the competitive playing field. Gyra took the lead in this investigation, her knowledge of intergalactic law proving invaluable. She proposed a bold plan. Not only would they hold the perpetrators accountable, but they would also implement new safeguards to prevent such corruption in the future. Bob was initially hesitant. He was a man of business, not politics, but Gyra's conviction inspired him. Together, they decided to launch an initiative that would reform the entire system of interstellar trade. In the weeks that followed, Bob and Gyra worked tirelessly. Their partnership blossomed both professionally and personally. They were inseparable, their mutual respect and admiration growing with each passing day. Bob often marveled at Gyra's intelligence and grace, while Gyra found herself drawn to Bob's determination and unwavering sense of justice. Their efforts culminated in a historic summit, where leaders from various planets and corporations gathered to discuss the future of intergalactic commerce. Bob and Gyra presented their findings and proposed a new framework for transparency and accountability. The summit was a resounding success, and their reforms were adopted by the majority of attendees. With his name cleared and his legacy intact, Bob felt a renewed sense of purpose, but his achievements meant little without Gyra by his side. He had fallen deeply in love with her, not just for her brilliance and strength, but for the way she had stood by him when he needed it most. One evening, as they stood on the observation deck of the space station, gazing out at the infinite expanse of stars, Bob turned to Gyra. "I don't know where I would be without you," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "You've not only saved my life, but also reminded me of what truly matters. Gyra, I don't want to face the future without you. Will you stay by my side, not just as my partner in business, but in life?" Gyra's eyes softened, her green-tinted cheeks glowing faintly under the station's lights. "Bob Townsend," she replied, her voice steady, "you've shown me that even in the darkest times, hope can shine through. I can't imagine being anywhere else but with you." Their kiss under the starlit sky was the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. Back on Earth, the announcement of their engagement took the world by storm. Bob and Gyra became a symbol of unity between species, their love story inspiring millions. Their wedding was a grand affair, blending traditions from both Earth and Gyra's homeworld. Leaders, dignitaries, and citizens from across the galaxy attended, celebrating not just their union, but also the promise of a brighter future. In the years that followed, Bob and Gyra continued to break barriers. Together, they launched projects that transformed lives across the galaxy, from building sustainable colonies on distant planets to creating education programs that bridged cultural divides. Their love for each other only grew stronger, their bond unshakable. Though they faced challenges, they always faced them together. Gyra became more than just Bob's wife. She was his confidant, his advisor, and his greatest ally. And Bob, in turn, became her anchor, always there to support her as she navigated the complexities of living in a world so different from her own. As they looked out at the stars each night, they were reminded of how far they had come and how much they had achieved together. Their journey, which had begun in the cold, metallic corridors of a space station, had led them to a life filled with warmth, love, and purpose. And so, Bob Townsend and Gyra lived the rest of their days not just as a power couple who reshaped the galaxy, but as two souls who had found their home in each other.